And your
second?
kirtans are so nice. So,
I need to be host.
Yep. Yeah.
okay, I'll handle that.
Or co-host. Okay.
All set?
Yes.
Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama
Vishnupad Panaman Sapadi Praj Charja Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hare Gaur. Hare Krishna. Welcome to all. And this is our Thursday evening Istagosthi. Pretty much anything goes. Om Jnana Timidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadhati Shabadantikam Bande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitamstam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So again, welcome to all. Welcome to Lalit Prasad Prabhu. Welcome to all Haridas Prabhu and all the devotees. And I wonder what kind of questions might be. Just look at that, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, this isn't really a question for the Istagosthi, and maybe I'm out of the loop and you have mentioned it already and I missed it, but I was wondering if you had heard about Shankar Prabhu, who is leaving his body.
No, I hadn't.
Okay, he's got cancer, and in a brief visit to Facebook, I saw some mention of him, and they said that the nurses say he has either less than a week or less than a month. I think it's less than a week. They're prognosticating or whatever. So I thought you might like to know.
Thank you. Where is he?
He's in Alachua, I believe.
Well, we certainly wish him, what do they say, Godspeed. We wish him all the best.
Vaya con Dios.
Vaya con Dios. And Rajendra Nandan Prabhu, our dear God brother Rajendra Nandan Prabhu in San Diego, is also heading for the door.
Sometimes I say the flower airplane boarding pass is being printed up.
Yeah.
Who knows for sure. I did have a question. But if somebody else has one, please go ahead. I don't want to hog.
Well, let's start with Lalit Prasad Prabhu.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you. I have a question regarding Sukadeva Goswami's 15-year stay in the womb. we had a lecture this past Saturday, and the speaker said that Sukadeva Goswami stayed in his mother's womb, fully grown, for 15 years. Now, that, that was kind of hard to swallow, how
His mother must have been a big woman.
yeah, so so
There's that
and
expression, biblical expression. What is it? Heavy with child.
well, we had a guest, and he's an engineer. He's very nice fellow. Has a good Christian background. Now the story about the whale. We in Christianity, we also have a whale story about somebody getting swallowed by a whale. That story was also told during the lecture, so he kind of swallowed that one. But when it came around to having a woman running around with a 15-year-old fully grown, he kind of looked at me, and I really didn't have an explanation. He didn't ask me about it, but it might come up at some point. And I now we've been reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the birth of Prithu Maharaj and how he came from the churning of King Venu's body out of his two arms, King Prithu and a woman, the goddess of fortune or something. They come out, and the question at that time asked to Kamalini was whether these individuals were fully mature, or did they go through the stages of childbirth, the childhood and youth and adulthood. And Kamalini said that no, they came out as adults, so there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And that's palatable. I can see that somehow. I can accept that one. But when I seen a woman carrying a 15-year-old child or a man in her belly, it just didn't sound right. So I figure, if I'm asked that question, what should I say?
Hare Krishna. Well, Tulsi Priya conjectures someone can be fully developed and not full size. Maybe he was mature, but expanded once he was born. Doesn't say he was actual adult size. There's a thought. I don't have anything scriptural to say about it, but there it is.
That's very good. I think I'll use that one.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
There you go. I get to give a perfect answer without taking responsibility for it. Okay, there's a, thank you, Lali Prasad Prabhu. There's something here on the chat box. Oh, yes. Thank you, Sankarshan. This was deferred from the previous session. The following are 3 points which I never heard before that I heard from a Prabhupada disciple on the Jiva fall issue. 1. Srila Prabhupada was once asked by his godbrother and friend, OBL Kapoor, why are you teaching that the jiva falls from the spiritual world? To which he replied, preaching is not always siddhanta. 2. A disciple of Srila Sridhar Maharaj said he was there when Srila Sridhar Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada why he was saying that we fell from Krishna's Leela's abode. And Prabhupada laughed and said, to defeat the Mayavadi conception, that is, that we came from the light. 3. In Jaiva Dharma, chapter 2, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes 2 types of statements from our acharyas, tatkalika, or statements meant only for a particular time and place, and sarvakalika, or statements meant for all time. He cites Shiva's preaching as Sripad Shankaracharya as an example of tatkalika. We must learn to distinguish between the 2. All right, well, let's deal with these one after another. First one, that why are you teaching that the jiva falls from the spiritual world? To which you replied, preaching is not always siddhanta. The let's talk, actually, now that you brought this up, just by happenstance, yesterday, the day before, I was reading a letter. It just came across my desk. Came across my desk to Satsuru Maharaj, I believe. I'm trying to think what was in it so that I could find it again. Where, oh no, that was a different one. Okay, that was to Upendra about a different issue. All right. This all follows a sort of all three questions presuppose a common explanation. First of all, just by way of evaluating evidence, except for the quotation from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, these are, there's a question about the reliability of the reporting. Everything, this is not something recorded, it's not in a letter, it's not in a book. It's, I heard someone say, or I heard Prabhupada say. So a lot depends on how faithful you think the reporting is. I don't really have confidence in the reports cited here. Someone was asked, Dr. Kapoor asked something and Prabhupada replied, according to whom, how do we know? And then the second one is, the disciple said he was there and this went on. So it's, again, you have to trust the fidelity of the reporter, and I'm not really persuaded right off. As to the third point, yes, there may be something that's said for time and place. I can give you an example that Srila Prabhupada was in Detroit and Lekha Shravanti was there, who had been, she and Ambarish had bought the building. And she, as the daughter of a great labor leader in Detroit, was well connected with local civic leaders. And she brought one, I believe it's a councilman, to meet Srila Prabhupada. Very nice man, African-American. And he was very respectful to Srila Prabhupada. He came up to Prabhupada's room and Prabhupada said, so, you have seen the deity? And the man didn't quite know what a deity was, but it was explained to him what Prabhupada was asking. And then Prabhupada said, yes. He said, Krishna is also coming from your community. So that's time and place. I don't think we'd cite that as evidence that Krishna was African American, but it's a time and place statement, and perhaps we could find others. But in any case, this is a common explanation that we've seen many times. It's really, Srila Prabhupada didn't mean it. It's the Srila Prabhupada didn't mean it explanation. He knew better. He knew that the true Siddhanta is that the jiva never falls. But in order to somehow or other give something acceptable or digestible to his mainly Western newfound followers, he came up with this idea or notion or explanation of the jiva's fall from the spiritual world. I think that's what's being presented here. I don't have confidence in that explanation. and for many reasons. First of all, it's out of character for Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada wasn't one of those people who like to feed you applesauce because that's all you could eat. He was consistently, I think I can say, strong, uncompromising, heavy. There he was at the Lower East Side preaching no intoxicants, no illicit sex. That wasn't an easy, that didn't go down real well with the local target audience. But Srila Prabhupada didn't at all compromise, although his contemporaries were happy to compromise. This yogi and that rishi, they were all fine with, just let your mind wander and meditate for 15 minutes a day, whatever it was. But you don't have to follow all these heavy rules. You just join up and join up, fork out, and jump in. So Prabhupada was strong. He had a message, and he put it out there. And if you liked it, great. And if you didn't like it, tough beans. He wasn't going to give another message to satisfy the public or to make you feel good. It was just not who Prabhupada was. He had a message, and he didn't adulterate it or change it or adjust it to fit the modern audience. And so many examples could be cited of how Srila Prabhupada showed that quality of being uncompromising. He was against philanthropy. He was in favor of in principle, wars like the war in Vietnam, at a time when opposition to the war was practically a, what would you say, the calling card of the younger generation. And he just wouldn't compromise. So now we're supposed to believe that on this issue, however, he felt that he had to change things. I think that's asking us to believe a lot. Apart from that, it's striking how deeply embedded in Srila Prabhupada's teachings this conception is. It's not sort of, like a floating remark here and there. It's deeply woven into the fabric of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. It's not just sort of painted on or sort of like a ribbon that's hanging from a corner, and you could move it. It's deeply woven into the narrative that he gives of our existential situation. So that's the second point. A third point is that if we needed compromise, I don't know that we needed it here. If he was going to compromise to, make life easier for us or make things easier to swallow or whatever, there were certainly other opportunities that he had. So many things that he could have said, well, that's allegorical, or, whatever, make it easier to go down. But he didn't. Take another example. We never went to the moon. Why not? Because the Shastra says that they couldn't have gone. People were walking out in droves on that one. Really, literally. Devotees were, walking out of the temples because Prabhupada had said that the scientists were rascals and that we never went to the moon, in direct contradiction to what everyone could see on television and read in the New York Times. And Prabhupada didn't back down. Women are less intelligent than men. Prabhupada didn't back down. On so many, headline issues, Prabhupada didn't back down. But on this, philosophical thing, I mean, who gets all that emotional about such, what would you say? I don't want to say abstruse, but such conceptual issues as this. This is not one that grabs at the heart. It's a conceptual issue. It's a teaching, quite different from, we would never went to the moon, or women are less intelligent, or shouldn't have independence. Those are things that really make a big difference in your life, or that that LSD is not a God-given way to realize divinity. These were things that had a direct impact on how people were living, in contrast to this concept, really, that the soul has its original origin in the spiritual world. It's part of redundancy, has its origin in the spiritual world. So the theory that Srila Prabhupada adopted this teaching really as a time, place, and circumstance patch to make things easier for us really fails, as far as I can see. It's just not a strong argument. It seems like it's constructed backwards. I know that the soul never fell from Vaikuntha. I know that Srila Prabhupada was a pure devotee. Therefore, he could never have an opinion different from what we know to be the Siddhanta. And therefore, and now I start constructing my explanations. And I come up with this one, that he didn't really mean it explanation. And I think that just fails, as a hermeneutical approach, as an explanation, as a piece of apologetics. I think it's just really feeble. It's really poor, which means that we have to come up with another explanation of what's going on here. And my explanation would be that Srila Prabhupada really meant it, and that B, it reflects or conveys a deep philosophical truth. And I would also offer C, that we perhaps overestimate how well we understand what is what, and how well we understand Jiva Goswami or the teachings of the Acharyas. There's a place in second canto where Narad Muni says to Brahmaji, he's questioning Brahmaji, and he says that everything's known to you, everything's like a walnut within your hand. You're so great that everything is, actually says like an amalaki fruit, but Prabhupada translates it like a walnut. I think that's the place where we could say that Prabhupada was adapting to time, place, and circumstances. Who in the West knows what an amalaki is? But anyway, he says everything is in your hand like a walnut. You know everything. And sometimes it seems to me that we presume to have similar knowledge. We've read Jaiva Dharma, or we've read the Sandarbhas, and we know what the truth is. We have understood the eternal situation of the living entity. And I would propose that it's not quite as simple or as easy to grasp as we would prefer it to be. And that Srila Prabhupada's presentation of the matter offers an existentially true position, statement of who we are and what we're about. And I would offer also that he was on a different platform from us, on a different platform from me and you, a different platform from the respected disciple of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, a different platform from well, just about everyone. And that what he's teaching is not just a patch, nor a misunderstanding. You know, we offer this patch explanation because we don't want to embarrass Srila Prabhupada by implying that he didn't really know the Siddhanta. Of course, he must have known. I don't subscribe to he didn't know the Siddhanta, or he knew but he didn't really want to say because he didn't want to hurt our feelings. It seems to me that there's a different truth, a different principle working here. He had a realized understanding of our position, and not just a, what would you say, independent realized understanding, but an understanding that reflected a deep penetration into the teachings of the Acharyas, a greater understanding that we have, manifest in part by our eagerness to seize upon the issue and argue over it, rather than do something useful like spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. What other thoughts about that? Yeah, that'll do for a start. Now, there's more stuff in the chat box. Also, I think well, maybe we won't go into that, but there are two understandings that go together in Srila Prabhupada's teachings, or in any alternative that you take. One concerns what is the origin of the jiva? Where does he come from? Was he originally in the spiritual world, or has he fallen down from the spiritual world? That's one question. A related question, which will have different answers according to the position you take, is, are we here because of misuse of independence, an original misuse of independence, or are we here because of Krishna's arbitrary will for us to be here? If you take Srila Prabhupada's position, we're here because of misuse of independence. If you take the alternative position, then there's a different story. And those who want to embrace the different story should embrace that aspect of the problem. Okay. Why is it that people refuse to acknowledge the resolution of the apparent contradiction? It was resolved by Prabhupada himself long ago. Druta Karma Prabhu created a large document laying out the whole thing. The topic has been exercising me emotionally and intellectually for at least 10 years. The topic of why people can't accept it, or the topic of where did we fall from?
Oh, for myself, I accept what Prabhupada has said, but against my will or desire, I sometimes find myself getting into it with people. And when they say, well, where does it say in Shastra? And I said, just read any purport. Practically, he mentions it over and over again, our constitutional position, reinstated in our relationship with the Lord. And they're like, no, tell me Shastra. And they won't even accept purports. They won't accept purports by Prabhupada, but they tell me Jiva Goswami. And when I say, where does Jiva Goswami say that? And I never get a quote, but they won't accept Prabhupada. And I don't really have much use for somebody who's still wet behind the ears telling me what Jiva Goswami says when they can't accept what Prabhupada says in his purports. So anyways.
Hare Krishna.
These are people who are looked up to, and they're, it's like, it's very hard to take, because it's not just preaching something that isn't exactly what Prabhupada says. It's maligning, or not maligning, but denigrating people who accept this way of presentation that Prabhupada did. And it makes me a little crazy, when the kind of mockery that goes on around it.
From what I've been, and thank you for that. From what I've heard, there's a devotee who's a doctoral student, perhaps at Oxford or perhaps elsewhere, whose civil name is Haas, his surname, and whose spiritual name I've forgotten. I apologize for that. And who's written I believe written, or is writing, in fact, or in the process of completing what might be his doctoral dissertation or else a separate presentation on this very issue, on Prabhupada's presentation concerning the constitutional position of the living entity, the origin of the jiva, and so on. And he's responding to pretty much the presentation that Sankarshan Prabhu laid out. And I'm told that he does an excellent job of, what shall I say, upholding the integrity of Srila Prabhupada's position. And not superficially, but, with the thoroughness one would expect of a doctoral candidate. I believe he's spoken on the internet. In fact, let's see if I have something here for you. I believe he's a disciple of either, and I know it's two different sides of the world, either Srila Sridhar Maharaj, who's coming in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's line, or Srila Narayan Maharaj's line. I think Srila Narayan Maharaj, but let's see if I can find that for you, in fact.
I think he was interviewed by Namras on his podcast, Maharaj. I can look that up for you if you want.
Yeah, you could do that. I think you're right. There's one, Padmanabh Maharaj, who's strongly presented the no-fall story, and I think the Prabhupada didn't really mean it, explanation. But this devotee has responded, I'm told, quite capably. Now, let me see where I am. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Sankarshan Prabhu says, I skipped down screen issue here. The same devotee who brought out these points 1, 2, and 3, refers to a purport where Srila Prabhupada says the conclusion is that the jiva never falls from the spiritual world. So there appears to be some contradiction in things Prabhupada said in this matter. Yeah, I've seen the stuff that, to tell you the truth, I haven't paid a lot of attention to all this. I just, in part because Srila Prabhupada himself didn't think it worthy of great attention. Again, I don't have it right at my fingertips, but there were instances where he was directly asked about it and sort of dismissed it. Well, yes, there was one time when Revati Nandan Maharaj asked him about it. Did the soul fall from the Brahma Jyoti? Is it perhaps that he fell from the Brahma Jyoti? Or did he fall from Vaikuntha? And Prabhupada dismissed the idea that the soul could fall from the Brahma Jyoti because he says that's already a fallen position. How could he originally have fallen from a fallen position? The Brahma Jyoti itself is a position of being fallen. Let's see. And there's, hold on one second. There's, Prabhupada responded to this, and let me see if I might have gotten it right off. This is, letter to Madhuvisa. This was an enclosure to a letter to Madhavisa Prabhu, 16th May, 1972. We never had, it's titled Crow and Tall Fruit Logic. We never had any occasion when we were separated from Krishna. Just like one man is dreaming and he forgets himself. In dream, he creates himself in different forms. Now I am the king, discussing like that. This creation of himself is as seer and subject matter, or seen, two things. But as soon as the dream is over, the seen, S-E-E-N, disappears, but the seer remains. Now he is in his original position. Our separation from Krishna is like that. We dream this body and so many relationships with other things. First, the attachment comes to enjoy sense gratification. Even with Krishna, desire for sense gratification is there. There is a dormant attitude for forgetting Krishna and creating an atmosphere for enjoying independently. Just like at the edge of the beach, sometimes the water covers, sometimes there's dry sand coming and going. Our position is like that. Sometimes covered, sometimes free, just like at the edge of the tide. As soon as we forget, immediately the illusion is there. Just like as soon as we sleep, dream is there. We cannot say, therefore, that we are not with Krishna. As soon as we try to become Lord, immediately we are covered by Maya. Formerly, we were there with Krishna in his Leela or sport. But this covering of Maya may be of very, 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 very long duration. Therefore, many creations are coming and going. Due to this long period of time, it is sometimes said that we are ever conditioned. But his long duration of time becomes very insignificant when one actually comes to Krishna consciousness. Just like in a dream, we are thinking very long time. But as soon as we awaken, we look at our watch and see it has been a moment only. Just like with Krishna's friends, they were kept asleep for 1 year by Brahma. But when they woke up and Krishna returned before them, they considered that only a moment had passed. So this dreaming condition is called non-liberated life. And this is just like a dream. Although in this material calculation, it is a long, long period. As soon as we come to Krishna consciousness, then this period is considered as a second. For example, Jai and Vijay, they had their Leela with Krishna, but they had to come down for their little mistake. They were given mukti, merging into the Brahma Sayujya after being killed 3 times as demons. This Brahma Sayujya mukti is non-permanent. Every living entity wants pleasure, but Brahma Sayujya is minus pleasure. There is eternal existence only. So when they do not find transcendental bliss, they fall down to make a compromise with material bliss. Just like Vivekananda founded so many schools and hospitals. So even Lord Brahma is still material and wants to lord it over. He may come down to become a germ, but then he may rise up to Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. This is the position. So when I say, yes, there is eternal Leela with Krishna, that means on the evidence of Jai Vijay. Unless one develops full devotional service to Krishna, He goes up only to Brahmasayuja, but falls down. But after millions and millions of years of keeping oneself away from the Leela of the Lord, when one comes to Krishna consciousness, this period becomes insignificant, just like dreaming. Because he falls down from Brahmasayuja, he thinks that may be his origin. But he does not remember that before that even, he was with Krishna. So the conclusion is that whatever may be our past, let us come to Krishna consciousness and immediately join Krishna. Just like with a diseased man, it is a waste of time to try to find out how he has become diseased. Better to spend time curing the disease. And now Srila Prabhupada gives this well-known example. On the top of the tree, there's a nice tal fruit. A tal is a kind of a palm tree with fruits in it that look like they're in sort of a coconut sort of arrangement. Not exactly, but anyway, a nice tall fruit. A crow went there and the fruit fell down. Some pundits, big learned scholars, saw this and discussed. The fruit fell down due to the crow agitating the limb. No, the fruit fell simultaneously with the crow landing and frightened the crow, so he flew away. No, the fruit was ripe and the weight of the crow landing broke it from the branch, and so on and so on. What is the use of such discussions? So whether you were in the Brahmasayuja or with Krishna in his Leela, at the moment you are in neither. So the best policy is to develop your Krishna consciousness and go there. Never mind what is your origin. Brahmasayuja and Krishna Leela, both may be possible, but when you are coming down from Brahmasayuja or when you are coming down from Krishna Leela, that remains a mystery. But at the present moment, we're in Maya's clutches. So at present, our only hope is to become Krishna conscious and go back to home, back to Godhead. The real position is servant of Krishna. And servant of Krishna means in Krishna Leela. Directly or indirectly, always we are serving Krishna's Leela, even in dream. Just like we cannot go out of the sun when it is daytime, so where is the chance of going out of Krishna Leela? The cloud may be there. It may become very gray and dim, but still the sunlight is there everywhere during the daytime. Because I am part and parcel of Krishna, I am always connected. My finger, even though it may be diseased, remains part and parcel of my body. Therefore, we try to treat it, cure it, because it is part and parcel. So Krishna comes himself when we forget him, or he sends his representative. There's one more paragraph. Awakening or dreaming, I am the same man. As I awaken and see myself, I see Krishna. Cause and effect are both Krishna. Just like cotton becomes thread and thread becomes cloth, still the original cause is cotton. Therefore, everything is Krishna in the ultimate sense. When we cannot contact Krishna personally, we contact his energies. So there's no chance to be outside Krishna's Leela. But differences we see under different conditions. Just like in the pool of water and in the mirror, the same me is reflecting, but in different reflections. One is shimmering, unsteady, one is clear and fixed. Except for being in Krishna consciousness, we cannot see our actual position rightly. Therefore, the learned man sees all living entities as the same parts and parcels of Krishna. Material existence is impersonal because my real personality is covered. But we should think that because I am now covered by this clay, I am diseased. And we should think that I must get to business to get myself uncovered, not wonder how I got this way. Now the fruit is there. Take it and enjoy. That is your first business. God is not bound by cause. He can change. He is the cause of all causes. Now, don't waste your time with this kaka, talia, nyai, crows and tall fruit logic. Well, how do you like that? Yeah, I think I would venture to say that this letter reflects the depth of Srila Prabhupada's understanding of the issue, that it represents a deeply realized understanding, far surpassing that of those who prefer to argue in favor of one or another explanation of why the fruit fell. Let me just look at the chat box so that I'm not neglecting anyone else's contribution here. Tulsi Priya, with your permission, may I share the document by Judakarma Prabhu? It's a PDF. Sure, go ahead. Sankarshan Prabhu, the mentioned quote in the purport from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:16-26. After finishing their mock fighting, both the devotee and the Lord are again associated in the spiritual planets. That is very explicitly explained here. The conclusion is that no one falls from the spiritual world or Vaikuntha planets, for it is the eternal abode. But sometimes, as the Lord desires, devotees come into this material world as preachers or as atheists. Yeah, I would be exceedingly reluctant to build a major theological position out of that one quotation, or from a string of quotations like it. I think that would be poor. What does it mean no one falls from the spiritual world? In the letter we just read, the crow and tall fruit letter, no one falls because we're all there all the time. We've just forgotten. We're dreaming. I'm dreaming that I'm Napoleon, but really I'm Jayadvaita Swami, but I'm dreaming that I'm Napoleon. I'm dreaming that I'm being chased by a tiger. I'm dreaming this. I'm dreaming that. But as soon as I wake up, I'm Jayadvaita Swami again. I've always been Jayadvaita Swami. So Prabhupada says no one ever falls. But even now, everyone is in the spiritual world, one way or another, because there is nothing other than the spiritual world. I know there's a material world. There's a this. There's a that. But because Krishna is all pervading, and because we're parts and parcels of Krishna, we can never be separated from Krishna. Prabhupada takes that position. So is that simply pablum that's being dished out to the poor kids? Or is it that I don't fully, is it a deep theological understanding that I don't fully appreciate? Srila Prabhupada is not a grammar school student, just trying to give to explain as much as he can about elementary grammar or elementary mathematics. He's not only a professor, he's the person who had the power to spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. He's not a person to be trifled with. So I would be exceedingly reluctant just to take that one quotation, especially the conclusion is, because they'd like to make it, this is the conclusion of all of my teachings, or this is the conclusion, this is the final siddhanta on the subject matter. editorially speaking, the conclusion is probably, I would be reluctant to extend that beyond the conclusion of this purport is, or the conclusion of this discussion in this purport is, rather than put it in 36-point type and say, here's the conclusion of all conclusions. This settles the issue for all time. I think that's just taking too much, far too much liberty. Also, it's just, the conclusion is, conclusion, we've got it. And Prabhupada simply doesn't work that way. That, if you see these words, the conclusion is, now you've got everything in your hand, and you can march forth into battle knowing that you've got the conclusion. It's just not what I see in this purport. Meena says, neither the sun nor the moon nor fire can illumine that supreme abode of mine. Having gone there, one does not return to this material world again. That's there, and certainly Srila Prabhupada knows it's there because he refers to it often enough. And one having gone, one never returns to this material world again. So again, this is like the perennial Bhagavatam class. If no one, how could we, if we go there, will we fall down again? No, Krishna says we'll never fall down again. But then how could we have fallen to begin with? Prabhupada said, crow and tal fruit, just take the fruit and eat it and enjoy, and don't dispute the question. That was if you want, the conclusion is, that's Prabhupada's conclusion. Really, that's Prabhupada's conclusion. Don't argue about it. Don't waste your time. Don't dedicate yourself to the task of once and for all, coming to the true understanding when we're still, not free from sex desire, not free from material attachments. First become, Prabhupada said, go there. That'll solve the problem for you. Don't pitch a tent, pitch a tent here and stake out your claim. This is the territory of the truth, and I'm ready to take on all contenders. It's not wise. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. Just take the fruit and eat it. Don't take, maybe the crow scared away the falling fruit scared away the crow, or the crow landed on the branch and made the crow fall, or it was just a coincidence, the crow landed, and just take the fruit and skip the arguments. I think the person you're referring to, Tulsi Priya writes to me, was interviewed by Nam Ras on his podcast. So yes, the devotee who presented the argument for the jiva never falls, and Srila Prabhupada, was presenting essentially a story for us. Is
I've kind of hijacked the chat box with some quotes and things, but further down in the chat box, I think his name is Swami Bhakti Pranaya Padmanabh.
Yes.
And the Simon Hack is his legal name.
Yeah. No, I think there's, no, I think Padmanabh Maharaj is the person who presents one side, and Simon Haas, whose spiritual name I don't know.
I thought it was the same person.
Side. Well, either way.
I'll look it up again.
Yeah, check it out. But I think Padmanabh Maharaj is presenting the one side of the argument, And the other side is presented by Simon Haas, who's, yeah, in fact, yeah. Just looking at an old email, Bhakti, yeah, Padmanabh Maharaj is the person who's presenting the non-fall position.
Okay.
And Simon Haas is his interlocutor.
Because the same person, it looks like I'm looking at pictures of the same person, and Simon Haas has books on yoga and the dark night of the soul and in Amazon and the book of Dharma. Anyways, I'll try and get it clear, but they look like the same person to me.
Well, I think he's not, but
Okay.
but at least I can say that Simon Haas is the person who presents the position that's closer to the one that I articulated. Now, I haven't heard his exposition and really had in mind to hear it. I'm only going by hearsay that it's an excellent presentation, that he does a very good job of it. But again, that's what I've heard. Yeah, give me a moment here. There we are. Okay. In one sense, it doesn't, well, okay, let's see. Then there's a quote presented here. This is from Tulsi Priya. Similarly, actually, we are not fallen. We cannot be fallen. But we have created a situation that we are become. Try to understand is a very important point. We have simply created a situation. We've not created a situation. Krishna has given us a situation because we wanted to imitate Krishna. So Krishna has given an opportunity. All right, imitate. You want to be imitation king on the stage. So feel like this, play like this, do like this. People will applaud. Oh, very nice, king, very nice. So again, this presentation by Srila Prabhupada that it's just a dream. It's not that in reality we were with Krishna in the spiritual world, and now in reality I'm a businessman, or I'm a software developer, or I'm Romeo, or I'm Guinevere, or any of this stuff. That's just a dream. You are who you always were, but you're dreaming that you're something you're not. And as soon as the dream disappears, you are who you are. That's Prabhupada's presentation. For those who may wish to look at the Crow and Tall Fruit Logic article again, Kendra Prabhu has posted the URL in the chat box. It's on krishna.com. Well, let's see. And we're at 8:02 already. My goodness. Sankarsha Prabhu, we did say that we would get to this topic, and we have. We're on it. Okay, so there's more in the chat box, and certainly one feature of this argument is that we can go on with it, and that was seemed to be part of what Prabhupada was saying in his Crow and Tall Fruit Logic essay, that it's a trap. It's Maya's trap. Here we are with the unique opportunity after millions of lifetimes of reviving our eternal loving relationship with Krishna and getting out of the material world. And instead, we're going to take a detour, and we're going to spend our, shift our focus to this essentially unsolvable question, this endless question. It's like the war on terror, it never ends. It never can end. So this question, how did the living entity, why, how, when, from where, you'll never get to the end of it. That's what Prabhupada seems to be saying. You'll never get to the end of it. You'll never solve the question once and for all. So, shift your gun sights and point toward going back to Godhead, point to serving the spiritual master, point to purifying the heart. And this isn't to say that, oh, forget about Siddhanta. Siddhanta doesn't matter. But Srila Prabhupada presents this as a conclusion to his disciple. Don't waste your time. I like arguments as much as the next guy. But this is what Prabhupada says, don't waste your time. Yes, sir. Don't waste your time. No, this is very important. We have to solve this. Don't waste your time. So, I may be a man who likes to argue, but Prabhupada's my spiritual master. He told me don't waste my time. So what should I do? Waste my time or follow his instruction? And again, my presentation would be in 2 points. One, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't just dishing out applesauce to people who couldn't take a heavier diet, because that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit Prabhupada's character. He just didn't do that. So the explanation doesn't fly. And two, we shouldn't underrate Srila Prabhupada and the depth of his realization and the depth of what he's teaching. Those would be the 2 points that I would end with. And we have come to the end of our session. And thank you again to Sankarshan Prabhu for bringing up this very engaging topic. And of course, we can come back to it should we wish, or we may go on to other topics. That's the nature of Thursday night Istagosthi. Anything goes. And thank you all for coming, and thank you to all who took part. Hare Krishna. Took part as by hearing, by adding something. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah. Good. And obeisances to Apurva and Kamalini.
Obeisances to
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. And Hare Krishna to country.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Hare Krishna obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. All right.